We've got a extremely cool episode today, in my personal opinion, Nick. We are talking about 15 years of real estate and real estate investing based off the lessons that Nick Beveridge has learned.
Yeah, 15 years. That's throw up the 5, throw out the other 5, throw out the other 5, and that's 15.
Bam, 3 times 5 is 15, ladies and gentlemen. But people really, really, really want to know what kind of snack or food should they be indulging in on this episode?
Well, I mean, it's close to Halloween. I'd say get those pumpkins out. I mean, and by the time this episode comes out, they'll probably be trash. So pull them out of the trash and eat those raw pumpkins before they go bad.
Yeah, before they go even worse than they probably are.
You don't need to cook them.
Yeah.
Andrew Huberman says you want the Skeletor pumpkins as much as you can get them.
Andrew Huberman and his brother Richard Huberman said the same thing on a podcast they did. So stick around, enjoy our podcast, and go for the show.
Richard Huberman? Mm-hmm. Everyone said they're doing just fine. Get on with the show.
That's great. We're going to get on with the show. We got a really cool show for you today. First of all, thank you so much for joining us. We have a really good show talking about Nick and his 15 years of real estate experience today. All the highs and lows, everything he's learned along his journey. It's going to be pretty good.
Not really going over everything because that would take longer than an hour.
Oh, my goodness.
But I'm going to do the best I can. I did a presentation last night for at our new event center again.
So then we got
not ours. But we were at the Ponderosa golf course that Capone's bought in Coeur d'Alene. People really liked it there. We had a good time, so we might do it again next month there.
Nice. It reminds me of Forrest Gump when he's like, so I met the president again. So we got a new event center again. So new event center going well. You guys had all good time last night?
Yeah, it was great. People got to order drinks and food and stuff, which they normally don't get to at our events. They usually just have coffee and cookies.
Free cookies.
Which worked really well for the last 9 years, but we got some big thumbs up like, hey, do it again here. This is great.
I got some nachos. I got some beer. This is nice, okay?
Yeah.
They all don't sound like that, by the way, but...
Yeah, everyone was from Boston there.
Yeah, we live in North Idaho. Nobody sounds like that up here.
All right, but what I went over was a kind of just a collage of like how I built my real estate business, what lessons I learned getting started, what like false lessons I learned getting started too, and then basically just what reflections on if I were to do it all over again.
Sure.
So hopefully it helps people. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook or X, we're going to share our screen today. That way you can follow along with some fun slides. But don't worry if you're just listening to audio. We won't miss a beat.
Yeah, we won't miss a beat. And I'm just going to be providing color commentary through Nick's journey today. Pretty cool. I've known him for, obviously, if you listen to the show, I've known Nick for longer than I've known most people in my life. I've known you since first grade, Nick. We were wee little tots. We were 6 years old when we met.
We were little tots, like tater tots.
Like tater tots, yeah.
Because, it's Idaho, and people love them tater tots.
That's right.
All right. So this is 15 years of real estate lessons. So just for those that don't know me, here's a little background of who I am and what we're currently going through. I've got 15 years of experience as an agent, broker, and investor. I've actually been a broker for going on 15 years. I've been an investor for a little bit longer. I actually started back in 2008, so I just blended the two and called it 15. I've actually been an investor longer, but 19 years-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's it. Man, time just flies.
That's over half your life in real estate.
Yep, that's true. So right now I'm a real estate agent. So far this year, I've done about 42 transactions. That's me helping other people buy and sell real estate. Me or somebody on my team, which we have a very small team this year. And that's why we are not close to 100 transactions like we normally are. Plus, we're in a different market. Currently got 5 rental properties, 3 of which are single-family homes. One is a fourplex, and one is an RV park. Last week, we closed on a fix and flip.
We did.
Yes. So Jeremy and I did not fix it up much. We put doorknobs on it.
Yeah, and to call it a fix and flip is a stretch for sure. We took the trash out.
We did a whole tail.
Yeah, whole tail.
That's where
that sounds more accurate.
That's where we bought a distressed property at a really good price. We paid my brother about $6,000 to do the trash out. They spent about a week getting trash out of the house, and then included in that $6,000, I wanted him to prime the interior, which is just where you spray primer on the walls, not necessarily paint, but the stuff that goes before the paint. It's like just this white stuff, and it kills all this odors in the house. And it just like kind of makes it a blank canvas for some other investor to walk in and easily know what they're getting themselves into.
Yeah, and primer works really well. So like it just sets a blank surface, like Nick said, and it makes actual paint stick to the walls better because the paint is going to stick to the primer versus maybe sticking to a garbage wall or like a.
Yeah, the primer sticks to everything.
Yep.
And then the primer or the paint sticks to the primer.
Yep. It's just like a pre-workout basically. It's a pre-workout.
Yeah, because if you actually just go around and start spraying paint before preparation, or like if you just spray paint on drywall, it won't stick.
Nope.
You need a base, and what's great about primers is that there's many primers out there like Kills, that will kill odors and mold and all that stuff, and it will just lock them into place. So you never see them again.
Love Kills.
Yeah. So last week we did a fix and flip. I think we made 38 grand on that deal, and it was a real easy one. It was nice.
The easiest project we've ever been a part of together.
Yeah. So nice little payday for that. And right now I'm working on one other fix and flip. Got a little house in Coeur d'Alene that I've partnered with a gal who brought me this deal. And it's working out really well. Cool. It's right by the hospital. It's a little bit more of a job. It was, we did open up some walls, redid a lot of some of the plumbing and HVAC and stuff like that. But it was a house built in the 90s, so it was pretty easy to anticipate with the problems and what, I actually, so far this year, we've renovated a couple of properties built in the 90s. So easy. They're built very similar like they are today, and there's not a lot of surprises. Right.
Only thing you probably need from the 90s for sure, like if it hasn't had a roof replaced, like you're coming up to your 30 years, of course. That's something to think about. But
True. Last year in 2023, I sold 19 personal properties. So we did close to 100 or so, our team. But 19 of those were my personal mix of spec builds, flips, rental properties that I owned that I needed to sell, and I'll get into that. Also, in about a 14-month period, 2023 to 2024, I lost a grand total of $1,851,000. That's right. That's what I said.
$1,851,000.
Yeah. So
Nick's
it's
not
funny.
good at numbers.
What did I say?
1,851,000.
51. Yeah, that's what that is.
So you said $851.
Oh, 51,000.
Making it sound like they were. Yeah.
Okay, so I said this last night at the
$850 off.
I said this last night at the presentation, and people thought I had a typo there. They're like, "No, that's 1.8 million, guy." Like they couldn't fathom that I lost that much money.
Yeah.
They thought, did you mean like 100,000?
Yeah.
They thought I had a typo on the screen, but no. I was like, no, I lost almost $2 million.
Yeah, 7 digits is what I lost.
And I'll explain why and some lessons I learned. So, pretty impressive losses.
Yeah, impressive is one way to say it, for sure.
Great thing to put up my resume. Hey, look at all this money I can lose.
Yeah.
All right. So here's something I learned at a very young age. This is something that, no, it doesn't necessarily pertain to real estate investing. I think it pertains to everything. But this is how humans retain information over time. There's this really cool pyramid of learning chart that I learned about in elementary school, and it always stuck with me, how humans retain information. Because the least effective routes of retaining information that you learn is through lectures, reading, audio, visual, that kind of stuff, everything we were doing in school.
Yeah.
But the actual, like, if you want to actually learn and retain what you've learned, if you're practicing, discussing, teaching others, those are like where, discussing something, you can retain almost 50% of what you learn after a couple of weeks. Practicing, doing, working a job, that kind of stuff, you're going to retain about 75% of what you learn. And if you're teaching things to others, you're going to retain about 90%. So I just thought to myself at a very young age, why waste all this time in school? Why don't we just go work? Right. And I'm like, I would love to have just a bunch of jobs one day. That way I learn a bunch of stuff. That's the way my mind worked when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
But it kind of still stuck with me. Anyway, here's another thing I learned about real estate when I became an 18-year-old adult. My mom and we moved when I was 17 to Florida, from Idaho to Florida. She got a divorce, and I moved with her. She bought this house Normal 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. I think she paid like around 180 or so. And it was a pretty typical, this was 2004. The next year, 2005, she sold it, moved to Phoenix. When she sold it, she made $84,000.
Nice.
And it was at this time where I just created this belief in my mind that anytime you buy and sell houses, you make money. Because I learned growing up, every time we moved every few years, my parents always made money on their homes. Like when they bought their first house in the early 90s and sold it 7 years later to move, from Post Falls to Coeur d'Alene, they made a good chunk of money. They made like 20 grand or something like that, which was a lot back then.
Oh, it was, absolutely.
And then the next house, they sold and made money. And it was just something that it was, I had this, total belief, this lesson that I learned wasn't necessarily true, but in my mind solidified. When you buy a house in America and then eventually you sell that house, you make money.
Be nice if it
That
just
was the
worked
lesson
like that
I
always,
learned.
but yeah.
Yeah. The next year, 2006, I left Phoenix. I didn't like living there with my mom. Like I said, she sold her house. We moved to Phoenix. I was there for about 6 weeks. I couldn't stand it. I wanted to move back to Florida. I was actually a lifeguard at Disney World, and I did lake patrol at this resort at Disney World. I called my boss I called my boss. I'm like, hey, if I move back, can you give me my job back? She's like, absolutely. Come on back, honey.
Nice.
She was very Southern.
The Southern twang going on? Yeah.
Her name was Robin. She's awesome. Anyway, but what I didn't know, like when you're a new adult and you move out into a new place, you can't exactly just move in anywhere you want.
Yep.
I didn't have really much money or credit built up or anything. And I went to all these apartments, many apartments, and I just kept getting turned down.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, you don't have
employment,
don't have a whole lot of money. I had like $1,000 or something like that.
Sure, but that's not even
it wasn't
for like
enough
a deposit,
really. Yeah. And everyone's just like, well, dude, if you don't have any credit, we can't let you live here.
It's a weird juxtaposition. Like you need the job to get the money, so you can get the rent, so you can so you can do the things, but you don't have those things in order, and you have to go and actually reverse stack it.
Yeah. So, but fortunately, I had a car. I had a '95 LeBaron convertible. Got that because of the Freddy Got Fingered movie. And I just decided, well, I guess I'll just live here in my car. I got a storage unit at U-Haul to put most of my stuff. And then I went to work at Disney World. And for 6 months, I got to just live out of my car. I got to shower at Disney World because they had like, a nice big gym that we were able to use and had showers and stuff. So I wasn't a stinky bum that I know of. But I was kind of a bum. I didn't really have much purpose in life other than go to work and then drive around and have fun. Yeah. So it wasn't a horrible lifestyle, but I was absolutely broke and homeless.
Right.
What I learned was, having nothing isn't the worst thing, but it just wasn't a lifestyle that I wanted anymore.
Sure.
I started building some ambition towards better things.
I'm going to stop you right there real quick. So what do you remember what caused you to start building that ambition and drive and like kind of bettering your situation? Like, was there an apex moment that just happened where you're like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore, or what happened?
I think I felt like there were so many things. It wasn't like one moment, but I remember the people that I worked with, other lifeguards that were adults. I remember distinctly knowing that most of them like didn't really have a great lifestyle. They showed up for a kind of an underwhelming paying job.
Sure.
Maybe $10 an hour, and they had underwhelming cars.
Right.
And they seemed to be, obsessed with Disney for whatever reason. But they eventually got old, and it seemed like their life didn't really change much. And I always envisioned one day like actually being in a good position financially in life, and I felt like I just wasn't going to be on the right track if I just kept doing what I was doing.
Sure.
And yeah, I mean, it was a slow evolvement. It wasn't like overnight I'm like, I'm going to get rich.
Right.
That's my decision. But I I just started seeing all these examples of things I didn't want.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much what I was just living through. I was living through these habits and day-to-day things that I was just like, I just don't think I want this lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I think it was pretty much that simple in the beginning.
Sure.
And eventually, you know, other things happened.
Sure.
I think another key turning point, Jeremy, you can relate to this one because you went with me on this road trip. Mm-hmm. The next year, we decided, I can't remember when, it was like early in 2007 or something like that. I think we're like, hey, let's go what if we went on a road trip around the whole country and we saved like, you know, our paychecks, like saved like $70 a week.
Yeah.
We would have, you know, like $1,000 each if we saved you
Plenty.
know, by the summer. I think that was our plan, right? We're like,
I think we both wanted to have $2,000 each, and I don't think.
and then my brother was going to come too, so we were going to have like $3,000 because he was going to save money too.
I think that's what happened. Yeah, yeah. It's foggy since it's, you know, almost 20 years ago right now.
Yeah. But the plan was we were going to have enough money to drive around the country and maybe get food and stuff.
Yes.
But something happened. You know, we decided we did something really, you know, I think you would call it like Dave Ramsey-ish, a great thing where we put away money every week. We had a plan. We followed that plan. Summertime came. My brother backed out. He's like, well, sorry, I'm not going to go with you. I don't want to quit my job right now.
Right.
You guys go ahead and quit your jobs.
We did.
And go ahead and take my car. You know,
Yeah.
it's a great brother. He's like, go ahead and take my car. So we had $2,000 instead of $3,000 to spend. But what happened was that gas prices shot up. Do you remember that? Gas prices almost doubled. Went from like $2 to $4 a gallon. So it wiped out kind of our budget of doing other things other than driving around the country.
It's true.
So I think we stayed at a friend's house somewhere in Oregon for like a night. I can't remember. I think we stayed at another friend's house in San Francisco. We stayed at my grandmother's house in San Diego.
Yep.
That part of the trip was pretty good. We had like places to stay.
Right.
The rest of the country, you know, going from San Diego all the way to Florida and then up to New York and all the way back home, we stayed at one shitty little motel
In New Jersey.
Jersey.
Yeah, yeah.
Because that's all the money we had. We only had enough money for like one $70 night stay or something like that. We didn't have any other. So we were just driving, staying in the car. I think somewhere in New Mexico, we went camping on the side of the road. Kind of weird, but it was fun.
Yeah. We're alive. That's cool.
But what it taught me was that driving can be a little boring, and that if you don't have much money, it's like kind of hard to enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
You know, and there's this falsehood out there, like the journey doesn't cost anything, or you know, there's the best things in life are free.
It's all about the journey, not the destination.
Yeah, for a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, but when you put that into practice, it doesn't really fucking work in this like you need money to enjoy yourself sometimes.
Yeah.
There were parts of the trip where we enjoyed it, but we would have enjoyed it a lot more if we can stop, you know, once in a while and take a shower.
Right.
Or, you know, get a good meal.
Right. There's a lot of ramen on that trip for sure.
A lot of top ramen and coffee refills.
Yeah.
And not much else. But we took a road trip around the country and I felt like we didn't really enjoy most of it.
I enjoyed my time with you, and like the memories I made like in the car with you were super great, because I remember I was driving and Nick is like, we have a power inverter hooked up, and Nick's playing Nintendo Wii in the back, which is a shitty place to play Nintendo Wii
fun,
in the
though.
back of a car. No, it was super fun. Like I said, the memories were cool. Like all the shenanigans we got into, it was an unforgettable trip for sure. But we could have definitely made it a lot less taxing on our bodies and our minds
if we had just a little bit more cash. And so I remember that kind of stuck with me. That was like, man, if we just had a little bit more money, that trip would have been way better.
Yeah. And then there were unforeseen expenses that we had to do. I think we had to fix like the brakes on the car.
Oh, yeah,
oil
that's
changes,
right.
Tires.
We got pulled over,
Stuff like that. And, you know, like that ate into our profits. Like that ate into the money we had. Almost $1,000 of that stuff.
That's true. Oh, yeah, that was like half our money.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyway. Next year, I started getting motivated at this point, and I started, for whatever reason, started listening to audio tapes of Tony Robbins and Rich Dad Poor Dad. I got sucked into one of those pyramid schemes, ACN. But the great thing about that is it kind of taught me about like opened the world of self-development.
Yeah.
So that was one of the best things about like this pyramid scheme that got me was it opened me to the world of this self-development, you know, where I learned who Tony Robbins was, and I learned who Robert Kiyosaki was, and I started like reading these other books that weren't just nonsense.
Yeah.
You know, that actually like they were simple lessons, but like I never got that in high school. Never got that from my parents.
No.
Never got that from my peer group. It was something different. I was obsessed with it.
Yeah.
So I remember late 2007, I think I was a car detailer, and I listened. I got to had the freedom to like listen to audiobooks constantly, and it got me super fired up and motivated. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go buy a house now.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to purchase a house where I lived because real estate was super expensive. You know, it cost $130,000 for a house in Post Falls, and I just could not afford that with my
Right.
income. So my lender at the time told me to, you know, my realtor at the time, they said, well, you should go look in the Silver Valley in Kellogg.
Yeah.
That's more in your budget, around 80 grand. So I'm like, okay. Because I had this false mindset of like, well, if I buy a house and eventually sell it, I'm going to make money.
Right. I've seen it happen before. That's how it works.
That's how I grew up. So yeah, I'll buy a house wherever. So I decided I'll go buy a house in Kellogg. I'll go move there, and I'll be and I was listening to Robert Kiyosaki's book, and he kind of stressed you want to get a job in sales if you want to be rich someday, because you got to learn that skill. The skill of being a salesperson is like crucial.
Oh yeah.
Because you got to you know, lead and influence, and you can't do all that living in a shell.
It's true.
So that's something that I took to heart, and I'm like, well, this is a perfect storm. Okay, I can't afford a property in Post Falls, but they're saying I can move to Kellogg, and I keep hearing that the Dave Smith Motors place is a great place for people to go get sales jobs.
Yeah.
So I did that. I moved to Kellogg. I bought my first house for like 84 grand. It's in the picture here if your guys are watching online. It's a little weird teal and white house on a very small lot. Yeah, got a job in sales. I started doing what they were preaching in Rich Dad Poor Dad. I had 3 piggy banks. I had a savings account, an investing account, and a donation account, and I took it seriously.
I still do
all
that.
the money. Yeah, all the money that I received from my income, I diverged into, okay, like 30% is going to savings, 30% is going to investing, and then I think 5 or 10% was going to donations.
Yeah.
And then whatever was left, I'd try to pay my bills with that. And it actually worked really well. Like I was able to like build up a savings.
Yeah.
But all the money I ended up losing. I got into stock trading the next year. Well, it kind of late 2008, early 2009. The market was going nuts. Do you remember that? The stock market? Or were you involved in that at all?
I'm not sure if this is the time, but I remember is this when you sold your camera? You had a camera that you basically sold, and you put all into some like shitty penny stocks.
Yeah. That's right. I did have
and you
to
were
sell.
trying to get me to be like, buy these penny stocks, and I'm like, I don't see the value in this thing.
Yeah. Well, the problem was I was making money at first.
Right. Yeah, the market went up, and you're like, go do it. But
Well, the market was up and down and up and down. And I got lucky with some trades. I remember I was trading like GM stock and Sirius XM stock at the time.
Sirius XM, I remember that.
Anyway, but I was making like $300 a day just doing random trades. Just getting lucky, you know, and I just heard, you know, buy low, sell high, look at a
so
trend.
you were actually like day trading. You were like
Yeah.
watching the market all day, waiting for that like to peak, and then selling right at that exact penny dollar time.
Yeah, I would set orders.
Yeah, okay.
So I kind of noticed the trends, and I would like set automatic like buys and sells.
Sure.
So what I did was I quit my job, and I moved back in with my brother out in Post Falls, and I put my house up for rent with a property manager. I lost all my money in 2 months. So I spent about 2 months day trading, and ended up losing it all in risky stock trading because I was just gambling.
Yeah. You're not a licensed, obviously, like you're not a licensed financial advisor, so like you can't give people stock advice. You were just going with what you thought made sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And as a young, naive, 22-year-old kid, you found probably 4 or 5 stocks, I'm assuming, and just you lost all your money.
So what I learned from that, I learned a big lesson. I learned that you have very little control over the stock market.
That's true. Yeah.
And you are just gambling, and you can be a professional at it, or you can be an amateur like me, but it's not, I wanted something that was a little bit more luck proof. So I decided, I should focus on real estate.
Sure.
I noticed what was going on in the real estate market, that homes were now crashing in value.
Yep.
My house was not rented out yet at this point. I had it with a property manager. They were trying to find a tenant. I was paying $800 a month to the mortgage to try to, keep it afloat. Also, I've kind of skipped over this. I spent a lot of money, all that savings, I was putting into the house.
Yep.
So I was making improvements over time, about $20,000 worth of improvements over the year and a half I lived there. And it didn't seem to really help get a tenant. Sure. The market collapsed. I think one of the mines shut down. That area got pretty depressed pretty quick.
Sure.
But I got this tax refund in the mail of like $5,800. And my girlfriend at the time and I decided, let's move to Florida because of all these great real estate deals. These homes that were once selling, like my mom sold her house for around $260. Homes like that were selling for like $80,000.
Yeah.
60, 80,000, depending on the condition. But I was like, holy smokes, things are on clearance down there. And like, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity, I thought, to like, let's move to Florida and figure out how to become investors.
Yeah.
And let's buy up this cheap real estate. So, we packed up. We packed up and left. We went to Florida. I started immediately having seizures.
Yep, you did.
Which was unexpected, unplanned for. I went to just before that though, I went to a real estate school to become a license agent because I figured if I have my real estate license, I'll probably learn more about real estate. Sure. Maybe I can be in the industry. Maybe I can be an agent.
Yeah.
And if I'm just in the industry, I might find better deals.
True.
My thinking was just like, let's just stay in the industry. I actually got my job back at Disney. As we were moving back, I called my old manager again for the third time. Like, hey, third time's a charm, right? Can I come back?
Yeah. Hey.
She's like, sure. So my house was still with that property manager and still not rented out. We moved back to Florida. We were staying in motels, started having seizures. Soon after I was working at Disney. And, I kind of lost, a lot of motivation at that point because I just didn't have really control over my mind. I was having seizures every day.
Sure.
And it was really rough because I lost my car. My car was a lease and I couldn't make payments anymore. I had to get a loan from my grandmother to kind of help pitch in for rent so I wouldn't get kicked out of this roommate situation we had. Yeah. But I couldn't really make payments on anything else, and I couldn't work because I was having seizures every day. Right. So what I learned was, got to take care of your body and health, be grateful for what you have. Yeah. And, have a little bit more savings because you never know when you're going to have a health crisis. Yeah. But I started becoming more grateful for my health, and I started taking care of myself. I don't think the seizures honestly had nothing to do with like the way I was taking care of my body or anything. But I started actually working out more, and I started paying more attention to fitness and health and eating a little bit better. Yeah. All right. So I finally got those seizures under control after a couple of months. I got on the right medicine, and the seizures stopped. Yeah. They just stopped completely. And it's 2024. Still no seizures. That's awesome. Haven't had one since. So got real lucky there, got under the right type of medication, been taking it every day. It doesn't affect me. Not weird and depressed like I used to be when I was having those seizures. I was under the wrong medicine. That was like, gave me a chemical imbalance, got super depressed, and it's just a shit show. I lost a lot of weight too.
Medications are a finicky thing for sure. Like it's got to be like the right medication that makes sense for your body type. There's so many factors included in the thing, and I'm glad they were able to dial in something that like worked for you.
Oh yeah. Me too.
Yeah. Of course, yeah, but
I'm very So now we're getting into 2011. The start of 2011, I become licensed. I got my real estate license. And I didn't have that car. I don't know if you remember. I had to turn in my car. So when I started selling real estate, I didn't have a car, but I had this scooter. I had the Yamaha Vino 125. And I got to use that for a little bit. I was able to trade it for a Honda Rebel 250.
Yeah.
A chick bike, a little bit bigger than a scooter, but not by much. I mean, it's meant for women, but it worked for me.
Yeah.
But it still wasn't a car. And in Florida, they have what's known as rainstorms regularly.
What?
And it was a little embarrassing, but for the first few months while selling real estate, I had to drive this motorcycle around. And when I was showing properties, like half the time it would just my luck, we'd hit a rainstorm randomly, and I would just show up drenched,
Soaking wet.
and so I'd like open the door, and fortunately a lot of these properties I was showing were like bank owned properties. They were a mess anyway, but I was usually just wet as shit
Right.
when I'd walk in, just soaked and just embarrassed. And they're just my clients just always like looked at me confused, like, why are you riding a motorcycle here when it storms every day during the summer?
Good question.
And I'm just like, shit, I didn't check the weather. My bad. I didn't tell them I didn't have a car.
Right. That's not what somebody who wants to buy a house where he wants to hear.
But anyway, I just worked my ass off. I was working 60 hours a week. My first full year, I sold 14 homes.
Nice.
And if I sold 14 homes in today's market, hey, quick commercial break here. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I really do appreciate it. If you want to give back, let me help you buy a house, or I can help you sell a house. It's the only way I make money when I'm not investing in real estate. I don't make money on this podcast or the events I do, but I do make money only when I help people buy and sell houses. So if you're looking for your next investment and you're here in North Idaho, I want to help you personally. If you are not in North Idaho, I can still help you out. I have a vast network of referral partners all across the country, and I can find the right real estate investor savvy agent for you so you don't have to. It doesn't cost you a thing. Thank you for your support. Back to the show. I'd probably make like 200 grand.
Yeah.
But because of the price points in Florida, the commissions were super small.
Sure.
I only made like $12,000 my first year, and it was not much to live on.
No, for sure. A lot of work, minimal payoff for sure.
I mean, imagine getting $250 a week
Yikes.
on average, and it didn't come regularly either.
Right.
You know, it's only when you sold a house.
Right.
So one of the big things I learned is like the importance of lead generation and how to like set the foundation for a proper business. If you're going to grow a business someday or grow a team, like really read this book, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, because it helps out more than just an agent. Like it's kind of for any business.
Sure.
But the big thing it stresses is like get a CRM, build a database, communicate with it regularly.
Yeah.
It's all about client acquisition and retention. And it worked. Like even though I was in a market where I wasn't selling expensive homes, but it did work. Like I followed a formula of contacting so many people per day to get so many results.
Sure.
Yeah. By the next year, I was still in Florida and actually moved up to Idaho like late in 2012, but in early 2012 got married, went bankrupt because I had all these hospital bills and all this stuff. I had like, I don't know, 40 grand of debt. And also that house that I had up in Idaho, it didn't rent out for a year.
Wow.
And there was a point there after having seizures where I just didn't have any income to start paying my bills regularly.
Right.
And it was very, it was hard. It was not easy. I tried applying for disability and stuff, couldn't get it. And then I ended up getting unemployment, but it was just barely enough to kind of cover the basics.
Right.
You know, I think it was like $300 a week or something like that, and it covered food and rent. Not much else. My gas for my motorcycle, and then Subway. I lived off Subway. I bought the $5 footlongs, and I would eat half of it for lunch and then the other half for dinner.
Yep.
And sometimes I'd skip breakfast.
Yeah.
Or eat a banana.
Right.
So I was living on $5 a day for food, pretty much. Bananas in Florida were super cheap.
Right.
They're like 5 cents.
Not much.
I'm sure it's gone up since then. But yeah. So anyway, the next year, I still sold houses, but didn't sell enough to make a lot of money. I think I made about the same amount. I went bankrupt. I lost that rental in Idaho because I did a deed in lieu. So it took a year to rent out, but when it rented out, it was negative cash flow, like $400 a month. It rented for $500. My payment was $800 and something.
And then you still got to pay a
And
property
I still
manager.
still had to pay the property
Utilities
manager
and
and
stuff.
utilities and all that stuff. I wasn't making anything on that rental. So I did a deed in lieu. I gave it back to the bank. I cooperated with them, had it broom swept, and they gave me a $2,000 credit for doing the right thing, of giving them, like, doing a good old boy foreclosure.
Yeah.
Wasn't great on my record, but
Thanks for playing ball with us. We
but
appreciate
yeah,
you.
they were easy to work with.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. By the next year, I'm in Idaho. So we decided to move back in late 2012 back to Idaho. We kind of missed our friends and family, even though business was actually kind of going well, even though I wasn't making any money, but like I can feel like I was actually growing something good.
Yeah.
And getting the hang of real estate and getting the hang of like knowing how to work with buyers and sellers. But I was homesick. Moved back to Idaho, got my job back in car sales. My wife left me and went back to being a realtor after that. So 2013 was kind of a big year. That's when I met my wife too, but got back into real estate.
Yeah.
What I learned that year was that I should just kind of go with my gut. I knew, like, my ex-wife, when I married her, I knew she probably wasn't the right person,
Yeah.
but I knew that in my gut, but on paper it worked. But that also translated to real estate. I know, like,
Right.
I've done many deals where it didn't feel right in my gut. Not many deals, but a few.
Sure.
A few deals where it didn't feel right in my gut, didn't feel right with partners, and it surprise, surprise, never worked out. But I learned that going with your gut is huge. All right, the next year, 2014, this is when I bought my first fix and flip with my brother Sean.
Yep.
And I was also a real estate agent, and I ran out of money again, so I was also working at Olive Garden as a waiter. I remember in the mornings, I would go to the office. I would make 20 calls to contacts either in this old database or, calling neighborhoods. But I'll try to call 20 people and have conversations, log into my database, follow up, try to schedule appointments if I could with anybody, but it was difficult at that time. And then I go to work on this fix and flip. I would spend about 3 hours there doing some labor on this house that we were renovating in Rathdrum. And then I had to go home and get changed and then go work at Olive Garden so that I can pay the bills. Yeah, so I was a busy boy.
Sure. Absolutely.
Eventually, we got that flip finished, and we made 44 grand on that.
Nice.
And that was a pretty good payday. It was the most money I ever had coming to my bank account.
Yeah. At one time.
Yeah, and I finally felt like, holy shit, we did something that worked.
Now, did you make 44,000 by yourself, or did you split it with your brother?
I split it with my brother.
Okay,
so 22,000 was
each.
mine.
Yeah.
But we saw the money come into the bank account, 44 grand
Yeah.
of our profits. We got a hard money loan on this thing. There's a long story of how we put it all together. But the whole point is 2014, 10 years ago, that was the first time I made a big paycheck. And it took, almost 10 years to get that.
Yeah.
Of me working my ass off to finally get a big payday. 8 years, I guess.
Sure.
But just the amount of relief of having that kind of money, you have no idea the feeling.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe you know.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
When was the first time you had a big chunk of money come in?
I think the first time I had a big chunk of money come in was probably one of the first projects we did. I mean, I can't remember what closed first, if it was Bark or...
Okay.
Because that closed before Violet.
Yeah, it did.
And that was only like a $14,000 payday, but that was like the most I made in one lump sum at one time.
Feel pretty good?
It felt pretty great, yeah.
Yeah. But what it did was it just reinforced this idea that, like, with enough hustle, you can make the universe bend the knee.
I love it.
That was what went on in my mind. Like, holy shit, I finally did it. And it came from all that hustle. that's what I learned at that time. Like later, I realized that it had to do with the deal we bought.
Sure.
But that was true for me at that time. I just thought, with enough hustle, you can make it work.
Yeah.
And maybe it took all that hustle to kind of gain the skills to do that.
Sure. Yeah, one led into the other for sure. So
Yeah. So by the next year, 2015, this is when I started really going, getting a lot more success. I took some of that money from fixing and flipping, and we rolled it into another fix and flip. After we did that, by the second fix and flip, I had a good chunk of money. I was able to put it down, buy a rental property out in Osborne. And then later in that year, I bought another property in Kellogg as a rental. Bought 2 rentals before we ever bought our own personal house. We were still renting.
nice.
My wife and I got married at that year, and I started the Coeur d'Alene meetup for the real estate investing. So that was early 2015. The reason I started that was this book by Tony Robbins, The Money Book, and a combination of this
Total
Think
money
and Grow.
makeover, right?
No, it's just money,
No,
how
that's
to
Dave
master
Ramsey.
the game.
Money master the game. Yeah, sorry. I apologize.
And at the same time, I was also reading this book, How to Think and Grow Rich. And that was all about like building this mastermind of people around you, being useful. There was also these other things. There are other things that like kind of got me the idea to start this event. Like it all kind of came at once.
Sure.
But I just learned that, hey, if I'm going to make some money, I got to be really useful. I got to like provide value was the big thing I learned in that book. Like to many people, try to provide value to people and without expectations in return. So that's what that was all about. And it worked. Like it took a few months of doing that investment club every month, first Thursday of each month, at the same time, and people started showing up to it. And I started getting. It took a few months, but I started getting a lot of business from it, and I didn't have to hustle as hard.
Yeah.
I just had to be consistent with something. So that's a big thing I learned was like, holy shit, if you're in business and you could just be consistent with something for 6 months. It's amazing the results. Almost everything works.
Oh, yeah.
Direct mail works, cold calls, door knocking, open houses. But what I learned over time was like, you just got to stick with something.
Yeah.
And just do it and get better at it and stick to that thing. And you got to stick to it for a few months if you're in real estate
Right.
to end up seeing the results. So that's the one thing I did. That's the one thing I focused on was I'm just going to have this meetup and I'm going to make it the best I can.
Cool.
I'm going to get, the best guest speakers, or I'm going to present on something that I've done. And it really did bring in a lot of business over time. So by the next year, that's when I met Joe. And I was flipping about 3 to 4 homes. I was still kind of barely getting by, and rebranded. My wife had my daughter at that time. And bought a bounce house business. Ended up giving it to my brother.
Yeah. Does he
So I was
still run
getting
that?
No. I ended up selling it a few years ago for him. But I also started realizing, like with that bounce house business, like if you try to chase 2 rabbits, you're not going to catch either one.
That's true.
Leverage was a must, but I was trying to do too much without leveraging anything. So what I did by the next year was I hired a property manager because I was also managing my properties. I hired a construction manager, which was Sean, because I was also working on these flips myself too. We got daycare full time.
Yeah.
Because at the time last year, before this, I was also home 3 days a week with my daughter. Joe helped out integrating the good ideas and saying no to the bad ideas.
That's exactly what an integrator should do.
Yep.
That's exactly what they do.
And then we hired 2 more buyer's agents to help out with all the leads we were getting instead of me trying to run with everyone or Joe. And we hired a team admin so that I wouldn't have to do all the administration work, which is 80% of the job of real estate.
Sure.
So I started freeing up a lot of time, and it got me, I was able to focus it on the things that actually did make money.
Yeah. Do you remember how much daycare was back in 2017 full time?
Yeah, it was like $400 or $500
Full time a month?
Yeah,
Nice.
for a baby. Yeah, it's kind of up, huh?
It's so the one we go to, it's $780 a month for 3 days a week.
Yeah, I think we were paying like $300 a month or something for 3 days a week, and it was supposed to go down over time.
It's
because
never gonna go
and that's what they said. And as the kids get older, it goes down because there's less responsibilities, less people. But it only went up.
right. Yeah, they're
Every year, like, it just got more expensive, and it's like, what the heck? You said something different, and we would go to different daycares.
It's all
and
the
it's
same.
just supply and demand.
Absolutely, it makes sense.
All right. So by the next year, 2018, this was kind of a tougher year. Both those buyer's agents that we trained up, they just left the business. They just couldn't figure it out. The admin that we had hired, I had to fire her, and that was not fun.
Yeah.
I didn't have much experience firing people at that time. And that was really hard for me.
Yeah.
It was hard to fire a friend. Because she became a friend over time, and she was a great lady, but she just wasn't right for that role.
Yeah.
She just wasn't good enough, and to actually fire someone who's like 20 years older than you, was not easy.
Sure.
And then one of the projects I was working on, it was a burr. I went 110 grand over budget on it.
Yeah.
So almost all my extra money throughout that year was just going towards this house. It's that fourplex I still have,
Nice. Well, yeah.
so it was worth it in the end.
Yeah.
But I was consistently broke. And then my brother, the contractor, Sean, 2018 is when he abandoned one of our projects that we were working on together on 3rd Street.
Okay.
He just abandoned it to go work on all these new projects that he was partnering with our hard money lenders, these new construction
Gotcha.
projects. Just kind of left me to finish a project, and I was just like, holy shit, what next? you know?
Kick a man when he's down, right?
Yeah. Anyway, we got through it though. And then, from 2019 to 2022, so this 3-year period, I just kept going to work, and I just kept showing up.
Yep.
And we turned things around immediately. And this was kind of like the hockey stick years.
Yeah, yeah.
These years were golden years. 2019 to early 2022, we started, we grew a team rapidly. Joe and I, we started attracting great talent.
Yeah.
We had a solid team of friends. I was able to grow up to 15 rentals, 15 different rentals. We were doing over 100 transactions a year on our team.
Yeah.
Eventually, towards 2022, I had almost 20 employees and 1099 people around me. So this operation was getting big.
Yeah.
We were taking team trips to Mexico every year.
I was one of those employees.
Yeah, every year. Like we'd start going to Mexico. I felt like I was, happy, healthy. We had a great family life. Seemed like nothing can go wrong.
Yeah.
And then by mid 2022, things started to change.
Sure.
Pretty quickly. The market, corrected quite a bit with interest rates shooting up. It corrected almost 20%.
Yep.
That year. Now it did go up almost 20% at the beginning of the year, but it had a hard correction and a slowdown really quick.
And this is all kind of from the aftermath of COVID, I would say, right? So
yeah.
COVID started happening. It was like early mid 2020 is when it really kind of started freaking everyone out up here.
Oh, actually, so 2020 was a pretty good year. When COVID started for real estate here.
Yeah, yeah.
But kind of late 2021 was when things started getting really difficult.
Sure.
For everyone.
Yeah.
It was just difficult to stay on top of it because we had such a rampage of people trying to get here.
Yeah.
And all the contractors were busy.
Yes.
And we couldn't even get materials. Like windows were 18 weeks back ordered.
So wild.
There were all these random materials. We couldn't get concrete. We couldn't get OSB less than $100 a sheet. Couldn't get all of a sudden and I had 26 different projects going on.
Yeah.
I was definitely felt over leveraged. I just kind of grew I kept saying yes to projects that made sense on paper.
Yeah.
I said yes to all these partnerships, even if it didn't feel right in my gut. There was 3 of them I got into I shouldn't have.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, all these partners and contractors really weren't performing. I had 26 different projects, which had a lot of overhead that I wasn't really seeing directly because I had all these projects. I had interest payments on them, and they were around $50 grand a month or so.
Yeah.
But it was eating away at this balance that we had already in reserves for interest payments. As long as we got the project done, I wouldn't have to make any payments out of pocket.
Right.
The problem was these projects didn't get done.
No.
So we eventually ran out of these interest reserves. And I started having cash flow issues, like on a weekly basis. Ran out of savings. And by late 2022, I realized I was burning through, personally, after the interest reserves ran out, I was burning through about 90 grand a month out of my pocket just in interest and payroll. Not including material costs
Right.
to get, the jobs moving. That was separate. But just my pure overhead that I had to like come up with out of pocket, about 90 grand a month for payroll and interest payments. It was every other week. There was about 20 grand of payroll and every month about 50 grand of interest payments.
Yeah.
So it was not just hard, but like unbearable.
Sure.
Like day to day, I was just trying to find money. I was trying to, how do we fix these projects? Oh, and I also realized that one of our partners was stealing from us.
Yeah, that's a big deal
on
too.
several new construction projects. That wasn't good. And it turned out because of all that stealing and not paying subs, we were upside down on several of those projects.
Yeah.
By a lot. So not only was I having cash flow issues, but we were upside down on these projects. We owed more than what they were worth.
Right.
Because $500,000 worth of subs weren't paid, and another 400 grand went missing. And the market corrected. Market went down. They weren't worth as much as what they were. And that year in 2022, of those 26 different projects I had going on, I was only able to sell 6.
Wow.
6 of them. So I would only get paid when a property sold.
Right. And then even then, like, your payment doesn't exactly like put money in your pocket. It just goes to help stabilize.
Yeah. So by 2023, 2020, late 2022, 2023, it was clear that I had to start downscaling.
Yep.
I didn't have any other option. I was forced to. So I started laying people off and selling rentals. Because I was going to refuse to go bankrupt or refuse to default.
Right.
I signed a bunch of personal guarantees, and I had a lot of different partnerships and friends and family that had money into these projects. I wasn't just going to be the guy. I did not want to be the guy to just walk away. Be like, sorry, it got too difficult. Sorry, that's real estate. You lost your money. I refused to do that.
Sure.
I had partners that didn't care. They were ready to walk away, do bankruptcy, whatever, steal. Not many. There were a lot of great partners I had, but there were a few that I was just surprised at how easily people could just get overwhelmed and just want to turn a blind eye to their responsibilities.
Yeah.
Anyway, I also started getting sued by those partners that were stealing. I just tried to focus on other things that mattered, family, health, and the big thing, cash flow.
Right.
Tried to focus on how can I control this cash flow? How can I get better? I got to control this cash flow. And the only thing I can do is sell rentals.
Yeah.
Luckily, I had built up 15 rentals over time. A lot of them had a good amount of equity.
Sure.
And I knew I had enough equity to solve the problem. It was just a matter of how many of these houses do I have to sell.
Right.
So, yeah. Do you remember that time, huh? Do you have any questions or comments about that?
No, it was a wild time for sure. I remember, so during that time, the 2020 to 2022, 23, I was an employee of yours at Ginger Snap. I remember seeing it all kind of get to critical mass, and almost being ashamed of myself that I wasn't in a better position to help you.
You did help us a little bit, though.
Right, and I know I did, but
you let me borrow 70 grand right up front, which was nice.
Yeah, and
with
I
interest.
I did that, of course. But I was you're one of the people I care about the most in the world, and I see you going through this incredibly difficult situation where you're losing all this money, you're getting sued, you need to sell all your rentals. You built this huge empire, and then it just has to kind of crumble.
Yeah.
It was just it was hard watching you go through that, but on the aftermath of everything, I feel like you're coming out better.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you had to kind of go through that difficult situation in order to see kind of the roses at the end of the field, so to say.
Yeah, and I didn't take it easy.
Yeah.
I was kicking and screaming, and I was the biggest problem. And one of the biggest things I think you guys can learn from this is something that it took a while for me to realize, but like, got to take ownership of my problems. You know, blaming people didn't get me anywhere.
Yep.
I wanted to blame people.
Yep.
I mean, I was kind of blaming people in the last slide just now, but I was the one that decided to partner with them.
Yep.
I was the
Absolutely.
one that like got us into that situation where I gave them enough control to just have control of the money and that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. Not really even knowing them super well, just assuming that people do the right things.
Right.
But that was my problem. Sitting there and blaming them for 3 months and not getting ahead. I only kind of gave the power to them, and it just delayed my recovery.
Absolutely.
So another thing, I had to take control of my time because other people were gladly taking it from me. I had to stop all the random stupid meetings with everybody, and I just had to say, okay, I got problems. I got to take control of them. Sorry, I'm not taking any more meetings. And there was a time there where I'm like, nope, can't meet up. I got to focus on this. Like I just had to block my schedule from anybody to interrupt while I took care of the fire.
Yeah. Which is important. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then I took my promises to myself very seriously. It's the best way to like build back your self-confidence is what I kind of learned. Like, is if you can make small promises to yourself and keep them, it'll build on top of each other. But if you make small promises to yourself and you don't keep them, your confidence in yourself will erode.
Yeah, absolutely. And then
You ever
like
feel that?
Yeah, and then if you start doing that to yourself, like you're almost bound to start doing it to other people too.
Yeah.
Like if you don't take yourself seriously enough to take yourself at your word, how can other people trust you as well?
Yeah. So like to kind of go along with that, like I decided to do a 75 hard with my wife. My wife and I did it, and we did the full thing, and we didn't cheat. We did the full, from like the summer to the fall of 2023, and we held each other accountable, which was great. It's always easier if you're going to do something like that, do it with a partner or your spouse.
Right.
But like, dude, it only took a month or so to get a 6-pack.
Yeah.
I haven't had a 6-pack before, so that was kind of cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But it is amazing what you can do when you just like make yourself promises and stick with them. And I made myself a promise, I'm going to go 75 days with not eating junk food, not eating pizza, not eating nachos.
Yeah.
And I'm going to work out twice a day, and I'm going to drink a gallon of water, and I'm going to read 10 pages of a book in the morning.
Yep.
So I did all those things, and not a drip of alcohol, and my body transformed quickly. Like those 75 days didn't go by quick.
No.
But the first 30 days did, and you can see a radical difference in my body and my confidence just in a month of taking care of yourself.
Right.
So that was a huge thing I learned, was like, you can make small promises to yourself, but you got to keep them.
Sure.
All right. So by the next year, this year, 2024, started to turn around, started to get a little bit better. I had this project that I was kind of working on in the background. One of my 26 projects was finally coming to a close in the spring. I was in this partnership with some hard money lenders, and I owned a 16% share of this business, where we purchased some land in Post Falls for $750,000.
Nice.
And we hired a developer to develop it into 38 twin home lots. And then we sold those lots to Lennar, the big home builder, for $3,458,000.
Nice.
We made over like $1.6 million.
Yeah.
It took some time.
Sure. Yeah. That was a long
And
play for sure.
There was no leverage in that. Like, it was all cash.
Right.
Like, so I was sinking cash into that. I was able to bring other investors on, like my mom and the friend and stuff, and like invest some of their money into it as well. And I split their profits 50-50 with them.
Yeah.
They got great returns.
Yeah.
But it was nice. Like by the spring of 2024, that's when I felt like things really changed. I was able to get a lot of cash back, and I was able to pay off a lot of debts. I was at that point I was done selling rental properties,
Yep.
and I was out of the weeds. And that was one of the last projects
Congratulations. Yeah, that was
that
a
was
big
kind
one
of
for
hanging
sure.
out there, just costing me money every month.
But that one was good. Like you said, like there was no leverage, but you did, like you said, you involved a few other investors to kind of get in on the deal as well. So, yeah.
Yeah. I also had this project over the last, couple of years, 3 years or so, this RV park that was bleeding money until early 2024 when I actually got the right manager in place. So it went from 0 occupancy, just costing me money, to now it's at 91% occupied
Nice.
and mostly running itself. I was, during the spring and summer, I was taking all the calls.
Sure.
And I was probably getting like 10 calls a day for this RV park, trying to get this thing situated. Now it is a long-term, month-to-month park, and my managers that are there, they manage it all, and I just get to go meet with them once a month and pick up money.
There you go.
So that's finally in place and a good cash flowing asset.
Nice.
Like I said, I finished the rest of my bad projects, and my overhead, where just a couple years ago it was 90 grand a month, it's closer to 4 grand a month now.
That's good.
A lot easier to stomach.
Oh, yeah.
And what I was able to learn was I'm like a rubber band, the more you stretch it and stretch it, it's easier to stretch
Sure.
next time. So coming up with an extra 4 grand a month that isn't collateralized by something that's bringing in cash flow isn't that difficult for me.
Right.
Because I was used to coming up with 50 to 90 grand a month.
Right.
A lot more difficult. So it taught me how to hustle and how to make more money.
Yeah.
Because I had to come up with the money somewhere. It wasn't just selling rental properties. I was also selling, I was out there selling real estate too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also took a month to get organized. I decided this was going to be the year where I wasn't going to grow. I didn't want to grow. I wanted to fix issues.
That's good.
In 2024, I had no desire to grow. I just wanted to fix issues, get the cash flow going, and take it easy. So I took a whole month just to get organized with asset protection and estate planning.
Yeah.
And I felt like this was something that, it's something that real estate entrepreneurs that are kind of gurish, they kind of preach, but they don't always do it. And I was one of those. And there's a lot of people I know that need some better organization with their LLCs and stuff. But actually, I hired Matt Swarenson's company to help me out with this. And if you're watching on the screen, you can see that I became just a trustee and a manager instead of a direct owner of all these LLCs.
Yep.
So I got a trust set up, and I'm the trustee of the trust. And the trust owns my house, and the trust owns the membership on the active businesses. And my trust owns the Wyoming LLC that owns all my rentals.
Yeah.
And if you're looking on the screen, you can see that, I have my rentals that are owned by Idaho LLCs because they're in Idaho. And then those Idaho LLCs are owned by this one holding company in Wyoming. The reason for that is for additional asset protection. If I personally get sued, my rentals are safe for me. And the reason for the Idaho LLCs is that if something happens, if if somebody slips and falls at the fourplex, all the liability is contained within that fourplex.
Yep.
And it's not shared in any other LLCs because of the equity there. I also learned from Matt Swarenson's company that a good ideal thing is if you have trying to figure out how many assets to put in an LLC, you should really just focus on the equity exposure that's there.
Yeah, up to 250 or something.
250 grand or so is a good, depends on your comfort level of risk. But the reason not to just put everything in an LLC is because it's expensive to maintain every year.
Yeah.
Every LLC you have costs you a few $100 with your tax guy.
Yeah. They got
to file, so you don't want to always overdo it. There's a point where it's kind of pointless. But this is for me. I'm not just telling everybody they should be organized this way. This is just the way I was consulted to do it, and it makes a lot of sense. I sleep better at night just knowing that things are actually all organized in my benefit for if shit hits the fan.
Right. The only thing on this like particular flow chart that if you're looking on YouTube, like the only thing that would be at risk for each other is the 2 rental houses in the one LLC.
Yep.
Pending the equity available, of course. But I like how you have the RV park in its own
Yep.
and the fourplex in its own.
And there's some things that are missing from here. I have
of course.
another rental that's like somewhere else, but
Sure.
but yeah, the reason I have those 2 houses together is because one only has like 15, 20, 50 grand of equity or so.
Yeah.
The other one only has about 100 grand of equity.
Yeah, you're fine.
So they have less than 250 grand of equity. So I decided they can share one LLC.
Sure. And
That's
in the
fine.
event where you end up getting, 250,000 in equity, pretty easy process to, I'm assuming, take one of those rental houses and
Deed it. Yep.
to yourself in a different LLC.
Very easy process. Yep.
Cool.
You go to a title company, and they'll draft up a quick claim for you for free usually. Take that quick claim, go to the county, have it recorded, and it's done.
Some of that's not going to trigger like a due on sale clause or anything, right?
It could.
It could.
Yeah, but I can show that I'm the owner of all this
Right,
stuff
you
and
can-
it's
you
in a
can-
trust.
You've got the paperwork that feeds back to you.
So if one of my bankers wanted to like say, hey, what happened here? I can show them a line that, hey, well this is owned by this company that is ultimately owned by my trust.
Right. So
So
changing
you're
owners
not
per se.
Yeah, from what I know, the due on sale clause when you're transferring it into your trust, ultimately, it shouldn't really be an issue.
Sure.
Or if it's even an LLC that you own, it really shouldn't be an issue.
Gotcha.
But every bank might be a little bit different. I'm willing to take that risk, and if
yeah.
a note gets called due, I'll call that bank. We'll figure it out.
Sure.
But it's not a sub 2. I didn't transfer ownership to some other person.
Right.
Ultimately, I own it. It's just set up better for asset protection.
Yeah, that's great.
All right. So with all that said, these are the big 3 things I've learned over the last 15 years. Because I don't want to overcomplicate this. Obviously, we talked about a lot of lessons that I learned over those 15 years. But this is what I feel like really takes the cake. And they're very simple. When you're buying real estate, buy right. Get a 30% discount minus your repair cost of the after repair value. So what that means, like if you're buying a property that should be worth $1 million after it's all fixed up, you should only be paying $700,000 if it needs no repairs.
Yeah, minus repairs.
And if it needs $100,000 worth of repairs to be worth $1 million, then you shouldn't be paying more than $600,000 for that property.
Yep.
To keep things simple.
I was
round
explaining this
numbers.
rule to somebody asking for a hard money loan the other day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How'd that go?
Good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Another thing that I want to share is just don't rush into partnerships. Now, it doesn't say don't get into partnerships. It says don't rush into partnerships.
Yeah.
Take your time, do some due diligence, get to know the person, and really make sure that that person is doing one of big 3 things. They're either bringing the money that you don't have, and that money is going towards the deal, or they're bringing the experience that you don't have,
Yep.
and they're actually bringing that experience to that deal, or they have the time and effort that you don't have, and they are actually bringing that time and effort to that deal contractually.
Yeah. Money, knowledge, and time. Those are basically
So-
the 3 things you need to make a deal work.
It's so easy for people to rush into partnerships when they're new at this,
Yeah.
and they just feel like they need a hand to hold. But just know that it is the most expensive thing that you will get into.
Yeah.
It's more expensive than hard money most times. It's more expensive than anything you can imagine. It could also be the most rewarding.
Yeah.
It can give you the most returns on your investment too if you got the right partner. So I'm not saying don't get into partnerships, just don't rush into them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the third final thing, cash flow will always win in the end. Appreciation's nice. Speculation's nice.
Yeah.
Quick flips are nice, but cash flow is king. It will always win
Yeah.
because that's what almost sunk me. Even though I had a great equity position in all these properties that I was working on, I didn't have the cash flow to get me through it, so I lost almost $2 million
Yeah.
because of it.
Wild.
Yep. Any questions?
Well, this is all obviously from a presentation, but I want
Yeah.
to say, like, it's been really cool to, like, watch you grow over the last, I mean, I've only been working with you since 2019. So the last 5 years, just watching, you know, the situation you were in and how you got over it has been incredible.
Oh,
And-
thanks.
And, you know, just with learning those 3 things in real estate, I think is really good. I would be interested to know if anybody's listening to this, like, what are the things you've learned in real estate? Drop
Yeah,
them
that'd
in
be
the
cool.
comments below. Like, I want to see what other people have learned too. And at your seminar too, remember when I asked the question, like, what's been your biggest mistake?
Yeah.
Like, I think a lot of people learn more by mistakes than like the actual good things they do. So just before we end this, what has been the biggest mistake of your real estate career?
Not starting sooner.
There you go.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
it. I mean, I've clearly made a lot of mistakes, but here's something I've also learned. Like, money is replaceable.
Yes.
I lost a couple $1,000,000, but I really gained so much experience that's going to make me so much more than that. And I truly believe that. I might be delusional, but I feel like losing that gave me a huge edge over most investors that maybe haven't lost that much. And they're not going to be as keen to potential anticipation of problems and that kind of stuff. And I feel like I didn't die, so it made me stronger.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
That's a good way to look at that for sure.
Yeah. But just didn't start sooner.
Cool.
That's it. How about you?
That would be the main mistake, obviously, that, you know, we can't go back in time clearly, but, you know, seeing what everyone else has done the last 10 to 15 years, like, oh, I really could have been starting this train a lot sooner.
Yeah. Because time will help you.
Yeah, time will help, but
Either with
obviously, like,
experience or compound interest.
right, and I think I was naive to the world of real estate and the world of investing, right?
Yeah, which is understandable
Sure.
because you didn't grow up, like, your parents didn't teach you how to invest in real estate, or the
Right.
school system didn't teach you how to invest in
learned
real
how to
estate.
get
Your
a job.
brother didn't teach you how to invest. Like, who in your life put you in that situation?
It was you.
Yeah, but, like, was there anyone before that talked about this stuff?
No. I mean, like you said, I was in that ACN, that kind of pyramid scheme with you. I didn't have a ton of takeaways with it. I was kind of just along for the ride. And I think I was expecting, of course, and these false expectations come from these kind of, you know, pyramid
Yeah.
schemes, but I was expecting to get rich quick.
Yeah, I think we all were.
Yeah. Oh, I'm going to
But-
make $1 million this year. And then I'm like, oh, I've only paid for the fees of my people underneath me. That's all I've done. I made a
Yeah.
$250 paycheck.
Is this how business works? Yeah, but the biggest thing I got from that was just like a new culture, a new like look into this
Sure.
window of like, hey, there's a lot of opportunities out there other than just working for a living at a W-2 job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, it depends on how much effort you put in. And maybe I didn't want to model this, you know, networking pyramid scheme thing. But it did, you know, it introduced Robert Kiyosaki to me, which, listening to that book, just like, oh, well, I don't have to sell video phones
Right.
to make it in life. Maybe I can just get into real estate. And I don't have to stick with real estate either. But since I know it so well at this point, it seems like it would be a big waste to just jump into something else.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Nope.
And I enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been enjoying it too. So thanks for taking me along with the ride with you.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Shall we go?
Yeah, let's get out of here. Hey, so thank you so much for watching or listening to this episode. Hopefully you learned something. Again, we're interested to know what you've learned in real estate investing through your time. Please drop it in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the episode, as always, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or any other place where you can leave the Investor Shed podcast a review.
Everybody call your moms,
Call your mom.
because you know you need to call her.
Yeah.
I got to call my mom.
You gotta call
Let's
your
get
mom.
out of here.
All right, let's call our moms.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for checking out the Investor Shed podcast. If you enjoyed your time, make sure to leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Follow along on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram at The Investor Shed for shorts and promos about each episode. Do you want to be a guest or know someone who has great real estate investing advice and stories? Reach out to us at theinvestorshed@gmail.com.